Hey guys, alright, today we are back with another OSP video, this time Legends Summarized Arthur's Knights. And I'm somewhat prepared, not really, I'm fucking lying. I have this book, The Once and Future King by T.H. White, a classic of modern fantasy. I haven't read it yet. I'm currently reading the first two. I just finished the first book of Evan Winter's series. It's called The Rage of Dragons, was the first book, and now I'm working on The Fires of Vengeance. And then I will be reading this book. So should I have waited until I read this book to react to this video? Probably. But I'm gonna wing it. We're gonna see what I remember of Arthur's Knights. The last pop culture thing that involved Arthur's Knights that I watched was the BBC show Merlin. That was the last. I think that's the that was the last show that I watched that involved King Arthur and his knights and Merlin. I've also watched. So for those that don't know, King Arthur, probably my favorite legend slash folk tale. If you want to call him a folk tale. One of my favorite characters in honestly like fantasy ever. I really fucking love King Arthur. I was obsessed with him as a kid, so I used to know so much, but because of, school and getting a bunch of other information in my brain, I've kind of forgotten. So, we'll see how much I remember. That's why I like reacting to these videos. Kind of tests what I remember because a lot of this stuff. So, I said this before, but there are a lot of new people. I'm gonna say it again. I watch the miscellaneous myths and these legends summarized because they are essentially what got me into history. King Arthur and Greek mythology are really what got me into being interested in history. Always been a nerd for the medieval kind of stuff. So that's why I watch these, because it's my little child interests coming forth and wanting to learn about this stuff. That's why I watch these. Should I perhaps change it from historian reacts? No, because in my opinion, I am a historian. I've written a thesis. I've done the work. I've done the processes of history work and whatnot. And one of the things that I think really and the role models that I had in becoming a historian and getting interested in the field, teachers that I had in high school, and then the professors I've had that I've been lucky to have in university and community college, they all, the ones that stick with me are the ones that openly admitted that they didn't know information. They were the ones that are like, oh, yeah, I'd love to learn more about this kind of thing, right? They're experts in their specific field and the thing that they, got their PhD in or whatever, in the case of my professor. So, like, I've had an Irish professor. He knows a fuck ton about Ireland. And he can go on tangents for hours on Ireland. In fact, we had a couple classes where he entirely just went on a tangent on the history of Ireland, where the class was a history of late British Empire. And and of course Ireland is a part of that, but we were really talking about, at that time, like the British Raj. We were talking about British controlled India, and I guess Pakistan and Bangladesh are a part of that, right? And he just ended up connecting it to, because there was a previous unit in that class where we talked about the Irish famine, of course. And someone in the class ended up connecting it to Ireland, and that caused him to go on a tangent, right? Because, he can easily talk for hours on the thing he knows. Whereas, he may know a good amount, of course, on British India, but not as much as he knows on Ireland. I don't know why I'm going on this tangent. This was a 5-minute tangent. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and learn about. Let's have Red teach us about Arthur's Knights.
I've already talked about how King Arthur is so interesting because even though everyone kind of has a feel for the mythos, it's actually a huge pain in the butt to find anything concrete about it.
Yes, 100%. His mythos has changed so fucking much. It changes with the times and what society really wants from King Arthur.
Who's who, what's what, who's related to who and how are all things that tend to fluctuate from writer to writer, and over the centuries, the focus got moved off of Arthur himself and onto his knights. And he had a lot of knights. There's no way we can talk about all of them today, but let's take a hot minute.
I think that also has to do with society changing from the focus being on the monarchy and the king, and instead the focus being on the people that support the monarchy. You know what I mean? Like it changed from king isn't all that important. It's the people around the king, right? That makes
to talk about some of the wackier or well-known knights and some of their representative tales in the greater Arthurian mythos.
Lancelot.
So very early in Lancelot's personal character arc, when he's but a young knight still going freelance with no idea of his true parentage.
Boy, I love being single. No, I don't.
In his name, he accidentally stumbles into a D&D module when he finds himself in a small town under the rule of the nearby.
That's just a Friday night, my dude.
Castle of villainy known simply as Dolorous Guard, as he is helpfully informed by a convenient damsel in distress.
Oh, what a life of misery we live. Oh, I've heard this story.
Dolorous Guard used to be known as Joyous Guard back when it wasn't a castle of villainy, but it is now under the evil rule of Lord Brandon, who, despite having a name more fitting of the villain in an 80s sports comedy, is apparently a force to be reckoned with. Further upping the intimidation factor, Dolorous Guard is
Hey, that's English names for you.
So that any knight trying to gain entry must first fight and defeat 20 knights single-handedly. However, the damsel in
By the way, I'm actually here to help. Whoa! This never happened.
Distress reveals herself to actually belong to the court of Lancelot's foster mother, the Lady of the Lake, and informs him that she was planted there to aid him in gaining entry to Dolorous Guard and freeing the
Hold on, I recognize that music playing in the background. That's the music from Witcher 3.
Castle in the town from its dolorousness. To aid him in his quest, the damsel gives him several enchanted shields that multiply his strength when used, and Lancelot uses them to defeat the 20 knights guarding the guard, instead of squaring up for a boss fight.
What ho, villain? Oh, yeah, listen, so I've got this thing, so I'm gonna peace out.
Brandon suddenly remembers an urgent sports movie he has to be in and flees the castle, briefly tries and fails to assassinate Arthur, and overall makes a fool of himself. Lancelot, meanwhile, discovers that the previous knights who had tried to free Dolorous Guard, who up until this point had been thought dead, were actually imprisoned in the Dolorous dungeons instead. So Lancelot briefly dips out on a side quest to break the enchantment on the castle, then liberates the imprisoned knights, claims lordship of the castle, and renames it Joyous Guard. As his quest
Nice.
reward, the damsel leads him to a tomb by the castle and tells him that only the person who freed Dolorous Guard could open it, and it has the name and lineage of that person inscribed on the underside of the lid. Lancelot cracks that sucker open, learns his name and his status as a lost French prince, and also that this is his tomb and he'll have to be buried here when he dies eventually.
Okay, that's fucked up.
This is also the castle where he hides Guinevere after the whole
Lancelot! Get down here with my wife! I shan't!
affair thing gets exposed, at which point it gets renamed back to Dolorous Guard, because that's what happens when you live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Oh, that's that's poetry. Percival and Eurythes?
We talked briefly about Percival back in the original Arthur video. He was the OG Grail Knight before Galahad was introduced to the mythos and had a large number of adventures on his way to find the Grail and heal the Fisher King. This particular story begins when Percival is embroiled in the Grail quest, and he stumbles upon a mysterious knight named Feraphis leading
25 assorted armies from Africa/Middle East. Oh.
25 Moorish and Saracen armies. Feraphis is an African prince from the fictional kingdom of Zazimag, and he's basically doing the generic knightly thing of questing around for honor and glory.
Oh, as you do. So, the jewels will shatter on any impact, but I like to look at that as a demonstration of our fabulous wealth.
Hoping to bring glory specifically to his queen Secondile, who gifted him with some swanky decked out armor and an asbestos shield of all things.
Nice.
Anyway, questing knights apparently work by Pokemon rules, because as soon as Percival and Feraphis make eye contact, they immediately square up to duel. So Percival and Feraphis joust for a bit, and then they get off their horses and start smacking each other around with their swords, and they're pretty much evenly matched, with Feraphis being maybe just a little bit stronger than Percival. But just when it looks like Percival might lose, he remembers his lovely unpronounceable wife, Condwiramer, and
That's a Welsh woman.
gets a major boost from the power of love. Percival breaks his sword over Feraphis's head before dramatically collapsing, but lucky for Percival, Feraphis is honorable to a fault and refuses to battle an unarmed opponent. So they call the duel off and chill
Hey, where'd you get that surname from? I got it from my daddy. As you know.
for a while, and when they start talking about their family lines, it turns out they're actually half-brothers. Their
Huh? What?
author being the wandering knight Gamarant. So that's cool. When they take off the helmets, it turns out they look really similar, with one major difference. Ferrophys is biracial, but apparently the author of the poem didn't quite understand what that means, so Ferrophys has black and white skin.
That would be medieval literacy, yeah. Or medieval writing, I guess. Depending on actually when this was written. He didn't say when these stories were written. I'm gonna assume that these are the stories that were written in the medieval period.
I go, maybe? Anyway, Ferrophys joins Percival on the Grail quest, briefly wows the court of King Arthur with his swanky crystal-covered armor, and eventually converts to Christianity.
Unlock with premium Christianity. Just pay $5.99 a month.
Because his status as a pagan worshipper of Jupiter meant he couldn't actually see the Grail, which kind of bummed him out.
Galahad, the uncrowned king.
I've mentioned how Arthur kind of got eclipsed in his own mythos due to the sheer volume of quirky knights and quests writers could focus on instead, but that doesn't mean he was irrelevant by any means. For instance, one knight makes his memorable entrance to the mythos by conquering a huge—
Hold on, there's a thing in the back. I sure love my wife a lot, Arthur. Also, my trusted knight, Arthur.
Huge chunk of land, 30 kingdoms to be precise, and actually threatening Arthur's status as king through sheer military might. The knight, whose name is Galahad, is called the uncrowned king because he refuses to accept a crown until he conquers Arthur's kingdom, which in this story is called Logres. He is also, by all accounts, an actually good king and is fairly well liked by his subjects, which is neat, and also not good for Arthur. Now, Galahad is menacing. His mother was a giantess, and
I will crush you, little king. I would kindly prefer if you did not do that. Thank you.
Shows. He's huge and intimidating and is having no problem overpowering Arthur's forces at every turn. But he's also—
Time out. Who is that? Oh, c'est moi. That's Lancelot. Works for me.
Utterly smitten with Lancelot, and after being dazzled by Lancelot's impressive battlefield prowess, he actually surrenders in exchange for becoming Lancelot's friend.
What?
The presence or absence of big rainbow air quotes around that friend is a matter of furious academic debate. Regardless of whether or not
Guy love, that's all it is. Guy love, he's mine, I'm his.
Lancelot and Galahad have more bro or more row in their bromance. They are very close, join the round table at the same time, and Galahad actually helped—
Your romance will be the stuff of fairy tales. Oh. Thank you.
Set up Lancelot and Guinevere together, which—
Galahad, you asshole!
You know, wasn't the best thing for Camelot in the long run.
No.
But, you know, points for the bro move, I guess.
Yeah. Very bro move. But also still very dick move towards King Arthur. Your king. I think he's— Galahad would have sworn loyalty to him if he's one of Arthur's knights. Anyways, Dinadan. Fuck that name. And Lancelot wearing a dress.
Galahad got largely written out of the mythos in the 15th century when Thomas Malory basically left him out of his rewrites, but he does make a cameo in Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur during the wacky exploits of Sir Dinadan, a knight predominantly
not into courtly love, not into pointless fights. Why is he a knight? He's good friends with everyone. Great sense of humor. It's that great sense of humor.
Known for being neither a lover nor a fighter, who thinks courtly love is dumb.
Hey bro, wanna smash into each other on horseback at 60 miles per hour? Sick!
Fighting for sport is lame, and it's much more entertaining.
And that's why I think we should rethink our stance of chivalry and goodness. What? Is there something on my face?
To prank his fellow knights at the table round and be an overall swell guy with a great sense of humor. During a friendly tournament that Dinadan—
Stop winning! Make me, loser.
Dinadan is doing really well in, much to everyone's consternation. Dinadan pokes fun of the ever-serious Galahad by comparing him to a wolf and suggesting he eat a huge fish in order to prove he isn't actually a wolf, because apparently both wolves and Galahad are well known for their hatred of fish. You probably had to be there for the joke to actually be funny. It's possible—
Oh yeah, I was there. It happened. Galahad, they confused him for a wolf all the fucking time, my dudes. Crazy. Galahad didn't like it. He didn't like being— I mean, he liked being— he'd rather be a lion. Oh, a lion. Big and strong. A wolf? Fights in a pack. Wants to be on his own.
Lancelot takes this joke—
What the fuck is this? What's wrong with me?
badly, because in their next duel, Lancelot disguises himself, apparently very convincingly, as a girl, unhorses Dinadan while on foot, stuffs him in a dress, and parades him around the banquet hall, which everyone thinks is hilarious, especially Dinadan. It's a weird day. Side note, in just about every modern interpretation, Dinadan has at least one really funny line, which is a testament to how well his comic character has held up over the centuries.
Okay, nice.
Probably walked across the channel.
Gawain and the Green Knight. Everyone knows fucking Gawain. I think, aside from Lancelot, I think Gawain's probably the most famous. Like, he goes King Arthur #1, Lancelot #2, and then Sir Gawain. But honestly, you could make an argument that, no, with how intertwined Lancelot is to the downfall of King Arthur, I feel like he always is above Gawain. But also, the BBC show did make Gawain pretty important. And Lancelot didn't really play much of a role in the downfall of King Arthur. They kind of, from what I remember, they got rid of that whole problematic romance.
Sir Gawain is probably the most boring of Arthur's well-known knights. What is there to say about Gawain? He's not as strong as Lancelot, not as good as Galahad, not as evil as Mordred, just kind of not much of anything.
Mallory said my strength increased as the sun rose. Nobody cares. I care. I care, Gawain. I love you.
Really, he's generically chivalrous but not a paragon of virtue, and he spends most of his time not quite living up to the ideals put forward by Arthur. Gawain is largely known for one specific story, a poem called Gawain and the Green Knight, where Gawain demonstrates that it's okay not to be perfect as long as you're still trying. So the Round Table Gang is
That's a very wholesome message.
having a lovely Christmas dinner when it is abruptly crashed by a large knight colored all green. He's holding a holly bough
Hey
and a
folks,
huge
anyone up
axe,
for
and he
a
has a fun
game?
little game he'd like to propose. Basically, anyone who wants to gets to hit him with the fancy axe, and in a year's time, he'll be able to hit them back with it in the same way. Also, they get to keep the axe, and it is a nice axe. But despite the appeal of free weaponry, nobody seems too enthused at the prospect of maybe getting hit by it. In the absence of any volunteers, King I'm getting too old for this fairy nonsense Arthur steps forward. But Gawain heroically volunteers, with the reasoning that if anything goes wrong, he's significantly more disposable than Arthur. Points for self-awareness.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gawain takes the axe and knocks the Green Knight's head clean off, at which point the Green Knight picks up his head and his axe, gives a cheery see you next year,
Oh boy. Oh no, Gawain. Good call volunteering. That would have been bad.
and dips out. So 1 year later, Gawain heads
quest!
off to find the Green Chapel and get his head cut off. On his way, he finds this random castle ruled by this dude Bertilac and his lovely wife, who offer to let him stay with them for a few days before he gets his head cut off. Bertilac even proposes a fun game they can do in the meantime. Basically, Bertilac will go out and hunt, and at the end of the day, he'll come back and give Gawain whatever he gets. And in exchange, Gawain will give Bertilac anything he gets that day. The wager doesn't make much sense until Bertilac heads out to
I'm not sure what he expects me to get by just sitting around a castle.
hunt one morning, and his wife immediately starts putting the moves on.
Oh! I get it. Yeah, I get it
So
too.
Gawain is between a bit of a rock and a hard place dealing with this. On the one hand, she's married, so he's definitely not going to sleep with her because that would be wrong, Lancelot. On the other hand, the rules of chivalry mean he's not allowed to insult her by completely turning her down. So as a compromise, Gawain accepts a single kiss from her, which he transfers to Bertilac that evening. The following day plays out about the same, only this time Gawain winds up with 2 kisses. The last day, he ends up with 3 kisses, but Bertilac's wife also insists that he take her girdle, which she claims will make him immune to all injury. Since he's due to get his head cut off the next day, he decides this is a good thing to hold on to, and only gives Bertilac the kisses he got, not the belt. The next day, he takes his leave and heads off to the Green Chapel. He finds the Green Knight waiting for him, who's impressed he showed up at all, and swings the axe, but stops when Gawain flinches and makes fun of him for it. Swings again, and Gawain doesn't flinch, but the knight doesn't hit him because he's just testing his nerve. Finally, he swings for real, and gives Gawain the tiniest little cut on the back of his neck. Ah, bummer, looks like he couldn't swing right. Good game though. If you're as confused as Gawain is, the Green Knight reveals that he and Bertilac are the same, and this whole thing was a ploy by Morgan Le Fay, who had hoped that the initial party crashing would make Guinevere die of shock. The rest of the story was basically the Green Knight testing Gawain's nobility, and even though Gawain is ashamed of himself for hiding the girdle and flinching at the strike, the Green Knight tells him not to be, and that he doesn't lose any points for being human. They part on good terms, and Gawain returns home, secure in the knowledge that he isn't perfect, but he's trying, and that's what really counts.
That's what matters. I respect it.
Also, he kinda goes off on a rage-fueled vendetta after Lancelot kills his brothers while escaping with Guinevere, then he
What the fuck, Lancelot?
drags Arthur into a war with Lancelot, leaving the throne abandoned for Mordred to seize control, gets fatally wounded, and
Dear Lancelot, fix your junk. Also, sorry about the war and stuff.
forgives Lancelot on his deathbed while begging him to return and help overthrow Mordred. So maybe the moral of Gawain's life is that you don't have to be perfect, but try not to screw up quite so spectacularly.
This video was requested by Patreon. Brexit.
Hello was made a distant moon
We got a
ago
song.
here.
Are there going to be words? There were a huge number of fascinating nights and tales I couldn't include here, both for time and for my own sanity. Understandable. Highlights include Tristan and Iseult, star-crossed lovers in a tale that seems to predate Arthur himself. Saphir and Palamedes, Saracen knights who appear in the 1200s, telling of Tristan and Isolde. Agravain, the second most evil of Arthur's knights, conspires with Mordred and kills Loki Funnel Man and I can't speak. With Mordred and kills local funny man and General Cinnamon Roll Dinadan. No, not Dinadan.
The second
no.
on the dot.
Gawain, the Knight of the Lion, who rescues and befriends a lion who goes on adventure. Yo, I want to hear about that fucking story. A knight that goes on an adventure with a fucking lion? That sounds sick.
By order, summer
Gaheris, Gawain's brother, known for having one arm that's longer than the other and getting killed by Lancelot. What a legacy.
Camelot.
Thank you to the patron. Alright, hold on, we gotta get we need a font. There we go. That'll be the ending image. Mordred, Arthur, and Gawain. That was Legends Summarized, Arthur's Knights. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.